34 past the hour today, 22,000 mourners are expected to fill the Staples Center to honor the life of NBA legend Kobe Bryant and his daughter Gianna, who died along with 7 other people in a helicopter crash in late January. Joining us from outside the Staples Center in Los Angeles, NBC News correspondent Steve Patterson. Steve, what do we expect from today's memorial service?
Well, the first thing you will see, Mika, is this entire area in just a few hours to be covered in purple and gold as so many people from all walks of life come to honor the memory of Kobe Bryant. In many ways, this will be sort of a coalescence of grief for this entire city. But in other ways, this is really just an extension of what we've seen here for weeks now. More than 250,000 people have already come down to this area to pay their respects, whether that's laying a jersey or saying a prayer, or even people just sort of coming to set eyes on the house that Kobe built. Today, obviously, a little bit different. As you mentioned, those 20,000 plus, really the only people that will be allowed in this area out of the 80,000 people that applied for a ticket. The date here is of special significance, 2/24/20. 2, obviously, the number that Gianna wore on her girls basketball team. 24, the number that came to represent Kobe in his later years. And 20, which is the number of years that Kobe played as a Laker and the number of years he was married to his wife, Vanessa. When it goes down, expect the screens behind me to go dark. The Lakers will arrive as one organization, one unit. Expect players that Kobe mentored, like James Harden, Russell Westbrook, to speak out. There's a number of celebrity singers and performers, the identities of which have been a secret and continue to be so at this point. And one thing we are not sure of is whether or not Vanessa Bryant and Kobe's 3 surviving daughters will choose as this to be the event to make an appearance. They have not spoken or made an appearance as of yet since Kobe's death. Security here will be extremely tight. The city already telling people, look, if you don't have a ticket, don't show up. We will facilitate other celebrations throughout the city. The LAPD is set up for that. You can watch at home, of course, but they are really limiting it to people that are authorized to be here. The proceeds going to Kobe's Mamba organization. The tone expected to be extremely somber, yet a bit celebratory as well. Mika, back to you.
NBC Steve Patterson, thank you very much.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.